was sitting there watching the end of the Kings game last night, and I said, it is time for an emergency roundtable. So I hit up Damian Barling, who is in the building.
Indeed.
I hit up Jesse Tapia, who's in the building. I forgot to hit up Kenny, who's not here, but that's fine.
He's on his way.
Felt serious yesterday when you sent out that text.
Yeah, I was like, we got to talk. We got to figure this out.
Yeah, the group text was more serious than the one you sent me.
The worst part was, I'll just tell you, I was sitting there watching Mike Brown.
Well,
interviewing Mike Brown, and on my phone, I keep getting these alerts that all of you guys are chiming in.
You're holding, yeah.
It's up, and I'm like, oh, look, I guess we're doing a roundtable. Like, I guess we're having a conversation tomorrow about what I'm watching unfold right here. I'm like, yeah, this is dark, bro.
Yeah. Did you just reread the text message?
Yeah, I forgot I sent that.
Well, they'll do that to you.
It was a great idea, though, right?
It was fantastic.
All right.
I'm just glad you remembered this morning.
Oh, yeah. No, I was locked in.
The idea. Yeah, okay, very good.
I was locked in on the idea. I forgot that I alerted you first because I didn't want to tell everybody and be like, hey, we're going to do this. And everybody be like, bad idea. So I just wanted to run it by Damian first to make sure it's a good idea.
All right.
So
everyone seemed like they were on the same page post game too yesterday.
Yeah. And that's the thing is it feels like after every game this year, we've kind of been in this situation where there's been not really a consensus. Like, okay, yeah, but if this is different, that was different. Kenny Caraway now in the building is part of the Emergency Kings Roundtable here on ESPN 1320 Sacramento Sports Leader.
It's more of a Pentagon table.
Yeah. So you tweeted last night, rock bottom.
Yes, sir.
And my worry is that it's not.
For this group.
Like, I feel like it could definitely get worse. And I think it's going to.
Well, I mean, for this group, it could. But like when I think about rock bottom for this group, like, this is as low as it gets before S hits the fan.
I see.
Right? Like, people are gone. People lose jobs. People that we really like are traded. Like, that's next. As far as, like, this group just as is, it can't get no worse without people leaving the building.
Is there anything left to get out of this group?
That's my concern. Is we've been talking about hitting the red button. And, like, now's the time for me.
So, to you, though, what's the red button?
For me, it is this roster is not it. And we talked about this last offseason. At some point, to get this team really where it needs to go, it's got to get uncomfortable. And this fantasy land where De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis and Keegan Murray and Malik Monk, they're going to be together forever. I think that's fantasy land to me now.
Okay.
I think if you're going to make the move substantial enough to make a real impact, I think it's going to have to include one of those guys.
I agree.
I definitely think when you have De'Aaron Fox coming out and vocalizing that the roster isn't what you expected it to be, that's when you're like, oh, okay. Like, De'Aaron Fox is literally talking about it openly, that the roster isn't enough, that there has to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard Domantas Sabonis, like, at his camp early in the offseason, like say, like, well, at least we got this one done. You know, not like the other couple we didn't get done. And it was like, oh, those are barbs from guys
for sure,
who typically don't go outside of the bubble of the team. Like, there's a lot of things that happen here. But when we get Domantas Sabonis after last night, me and Brendan sitting there talking to Domas, like, he was professional. Like, he handled himself very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he talked about, yeah, we still love each other. Like, all these things that they continue to say, like, we don't know all of the reasons why this is happening, but we're still here together. We're still fighting together. But when you hear those little barbs, those are when you're like, okay, like, things are starting to unwind. And we're at that point where all of those things are going to start being collected and put into posts where you're like, okay, yeah, it's been enough playing out over the last 3, 6, 8 months, or for that matter, 3 years. Like, we've talked about it. How uncomfortable is it for Kevin Huerter and for Trey Lyles right now? Because I know how uncomfortable it was for Harrison Barnes for 3 years to hear his name in every single trade. It's just uncomfortable, and that's how they do business.
Then be better. Like, be better than.
No, I get you, but it's really uncomfortable. Like, everyone's talking about it everywhere about how you might lose your job at any time. You know, we might not have that show tomorrow. Maybe the next day. But we probably will have it. I don't know. Maybe you'll be here. Maybe you won't. We'll see what happens on February 8th. If you're
Yeah.
here, you're
But that's a
here.
little bit of a false equivalent too, because we don't have a show, we lose our job. You just go work in a different city and you make, I hate to be this way, but you make your millions of dollars.
I get
You got to perform.
Mhm.
You
But
don't want to hear those things, perform.
it still doesn't feel good though.
No, I'm sure it doesn't. Neither does this. There were 19 points from the bench yesterday, which is
Yep.
actually a lot for them. 7 was the lead. It was Kevin Huerter. Did anyone glance at the box score from the Golden State Warriors game last night?
Oh.
The Warriors-Grizzlies game. The Grizzlies
Yeah.
put up 144 points.
Yeah.
Did anyone examine that box score at all?
The
The 2 leading scorers for the Memphis Grizzlies came off the bench. One of them's name is Santi.
Santi Aldama.
He had 21 points.
Yeah, lit it up.
The other one's name is Jake.
Good old Jake.
Shout out, Jay.
LaRavia.
He had 19.
Yeah.
And that's not counting old Luke Kennard,
Oh,
who had
Super
15
Rock.
points.
The Kennard
Ugh.
dog.
That bench can score. That bench is pale, but that bench can score.
Shout out to Jake.
Santi, Jake, and Luke.
That's
Like, are
crazy.
you serious?
That's crazy.
So all that is 100% right, but I keep saying we're having two different conversations. They're they're number 2 in the Western Conference. You want to be number 2, number 1 in the Western Conference,
Mhm.
you get bench production like that.
Mhm.
I keep saying it. You don't need that to not be what the Kings are right now. Flip it to 15 and 13. They need Jake to be 15 and 13.
Yeah.
Why
This is ridiculous.
why isn't it the other way then? What's going wrong?
That's what I keep asking. Is if they have all NBA center, point guard we think should be all NBA, 6th man of the year that we think should be 6th man of the year, the number 4 pick who's untradeable, and who am I missing? And a Hall of Famer.
Okay, so I'm glad you ended with that one. So were all of the Bontempses and the Windhurst and those jackasses, were they right?
Maybe.
It kind of feels that way.
Maybe.
Signing the Hall of Famer was the wrong move?
Maybe.
Kind of feels that way.
Because
I don't
last
think they
year,
were, but the results are saying what they're
Yeah,
saying.
right.
where is it? 17 and 11 through 28 games last year.
Mhm.
16 and 12 through 28 games the year prior.
It's significantly better.
But you guys talked about it before we came in here. All metrics are up. All metrics are, at least that I can tell.
The
They're-
metrics are lying. Like I know.
I think the metrics in the
Okay,
league
let
are
me ask
up.
this. Let me ask this. If the metrics are up, because you're right, we brought this up, we touched on it just briefly earlier. If that's right, then what's wrong?
There are 2 that are down. And I'm not saying it's their fault, but there are 2 that are down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the shooting of Herter, it's the shooting of Keegan Murray. 3-point shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 2 things that are different in a negative way than last year, unless I got that wrong.
No.
Mhm.
Everything is up
Mhm.
except for that. And once again, it's not all that's not all their fault.
Mm-hmm.
But that's more of a difference. Like we talked about DeMar DeRozan. You guys were talking about the sequence last night where they kept going to the pick and roll and converted, and then you got to get DeMar shots. Who's calling that play?
The
Like
players.
let's really break that down. Who's calling that?
Mm-hmm.
So number one, let's go through the options. Is DeMar DeRozan after 3 straight pick and rolls saying, "Yo, Fox, Monk, hey, come on, it's time for me to eat.
DeMar DeRozan time.
It's time for me to eat." Is he saying that? If no, which I don't think he is, why are Monk or anybody calling a different play? That's not DeMar's fault.
Sure.
We talk about, we haven't seen all the things that we thought we were going to see coming in the offseason with the dribble handoff.
Mhm.
Why not?
Why
not?
That's a great question.
They worked on it. They were in the Galen Center working on it.
I thought it was
And that-
Juju Watkins.
Yeah. And now we're here and DeMar is getting it in quote unquote his spots. But once again, unless somebody is telling me that DeMar is saying, "Nah, man, don't give me no dribble handoff. Give me the ball right here, else I'm sitting and pouting." If he's not saying that, then where are the coaches and where are the point guards?
I don't know, but I'll also tell you, I watched him go one-on-one against Anthony Davis and just sat there and shook my head. Like, that's one of the best defenders in the league, and he's 5 inches taller than you. What is happening? Like, why? What is happening in this moment? Why have you not moved off the ball? You have a center spaced out away from the basket. Why is the ball not moved? Because scoring against Anthony Davis in that situation is like maybe a 20% chance. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. He's way bigger than you, and he's got you. You're isolated on him. And if you don't think that that's something that the Lakers just sitting there saying, yes, we have Anthony
Yeah,
Davis
we'll take that every
isolated on
time.
DeMar DeRozan on the outside, you don't think that they're like sitting there like, this is exactly what we were hoping for.
But at the same time, though, it's not Isaac Jones being isolated on Anthony Davis. DeMar DeRozan has probably gotten plenty of buckets. It's not out of the realm of possibility to say, I got the big man on me. I can go to work.
It doesn't work once. You got to move on.
Okay,
and
well,
you
where
got to
my
move
point
on.
goes, where my
And
coach?
like, again, I'm not someone who's saying this is all DeMar DeRozan's fault. I have not said that at all. But there are enough situations where you can look at the mixture of players aren't working nearly
Yeah.
enough.
Right.
The mixture, whatever it is, it's not, the ingredients aren't working. And I don't know how you fix that without, again, with December 15th just came and went. You can trade DeMar DeRozan at this point. You can trade anybody. But like, that's where you're looking like, okay, we tried something and you made a big fanfare out of it when you signed the guy, but you also created a window where there wasn't a window before. The Kings window was much bigger than this. It'd be like, all of a sudden there's a 2-year window where you got to win. It's like, okay, yes, the Kings need to win without any question, but we created this like window when DeMar DeRozan was brought in on a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option at 35 years old.
How quick does Monty need to move if, like, yesterday we felt like it was rock bottom? What if they feel the same in the locker room? And like that Mike Brown post-game press conference was kind of tough and all that. Like, some of the ingredients not working. Like, how fast does Monty need to move at this point then?
Yeah, he
Yesterday.
needs to move immediately.
6
Yeah.
months ago.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
That's a great point.
Actually-
and let's be
Like,
clear.
are we done? Are we done waiting for this team to like improve at this point? Like, now is it just all right? We got the deal here. Make the deal now.
That's what it is for me.
Monty and West need to move.
Yes.
Because if they're getting brought up together, then we're going to bring them up together.
Yep.
Monty and West need to figure something out.
Yes.
And I am adamant. If you're firing one, you're firing both.
You have to.
And
Why?
I'm not here to jump in front of Wes, but
Sure.
Wes was not mentioned when Monty won Executive of the Year, so we can't mention Wes when it's going bad.
If
I'm
there's,
not saying
I
he's
think
not
you
at fault.
can.
I'm not saying he's at fault, but when just like we just talked about for a whole day with De'Aaron Fox yesterday, when it's going good, you get the credit. When it's going bad, you've got to wear that too.
Sure.
And we're not going to throw Wes in there now.
I feel
because we
like
didn't-
West has been in it.
Yeah,
I feel like
but
he
it's a
has.
front office problem. We say Monty because he's the head of the front office. But to me, you're not firing Monty and being like, oh, yeah, the guy who was right there with him making all the same decisions. Here you go.
Chris Biederman asked Mike Brown about the ingredients that he has, and he was like, look, you got to ask Monty and West about that.
Right.
He didn't say Monty McNair.
Sure.
He said you got to ask Monty and West about that.
Let me ask you this, Kenny. Because Jesse said, when's the time to act? When's the time to stop waiting for players to just come around and do something? If you could hit a red button right now, or pick your favorite color button, if you could hit a button right now that the Kings make the one move, not like a domino effect of moves, they can do one thing that you think makes them better. What is it?
I mean, it's not a red button, but it's the move I would make before the red button. Is that fair? Or do you want the
Okay,
red button?
no, but what's
You
the
want
move
the
you
red
would make?
button.
What's the move you would make right now? If you're not at red button place, that's fine.
Find a way to get like Finney Smith, maybe even a Kuzma, and keep the guys that you consider core together. I'll get off the fence because we're having an emerging podcast and we talking. Trade Keegan Murray and see what you can get. And it's not to say it's Keegan Murray's fault, but that's your biggest asset. Well,
Yes,
it's not.
I would agree.
De'Aaron Fox and DeMarcus
That's the
Thomas
red
are-
button to me.
Yeah. De'Aaron
Red
Fox
button
your
is
biggest
trading
asset.
trading De'Aaron Fox. That's the red button.
That's
my red button is you start firing people and this thing, it doesn't stop. Like it goes, you want to fire all the sasses out here in the chat that were like, it's all on Mike Brown. You fire Mike Brown, it's not going to get better. It only gets worse. I've been through it so many times.
That's the black button.
7-21.
Oh.
Tyrone Corbin, 7-21. It is the button that leads to the next button, that leads to the next button.
That's the
and
vortex button.
let me just tell you what those buttons are. Is if you want to fire Mike Brown, that's fine. Because right after that, you're gonna fire Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox when it doesn't work in the offseason. And then De'Aaron Fox is gonna say, I'm done, I'm good. Get me the F out of here. That's the next button. And then it's all over from there. You start over or whatever. I don't know what you do at that point, but that's the button that so many people press it. It's like, okay, just all of these things, they play in together. Like it never, ever, ever works to fire one guy and think that the next guy's going to come in and everything's going to be roses, because look, I'll tell you, like the other guy that could step in is Doug Christie, because that's probably who Vivek is going to want to step in because he did it once before. That means that there's a good chance that at the end of the year, he's gone and everybody else is gone, because it's not just going to turn around because you did one move like firing a coach. So like, I get it. The move right now is to try to figure out how to fix what's going on.
Mhm.
It's not to go blame game. It's your fault. And then, because once you say it's your fault and you make that move, there's no one else protecting Monty and Wes.
Mhm.
They already made the play. The play was to blame it on Mike. Now it's on you. And when this thing spins out like it always does, that's where you're going to be facing.
Are there problems deeper than beyond the bench? Because we've talked about like I've said the last few weeks, like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You just need to get some guys who are consistent. But yesterday, it felt like they were just from watching, they felt like they were disconnected. And it's just like, this group just isn't working at this point. Like, maybe it is time for a big shakeup where I'm not like for getting rid of DeMar, but maybe you trade Keegan or whoever. Like, is it time for something bigger?
Well, so how if you're De'Aaron after the last 2 or 3 days, do you pick up your 5th foul in the third quarter? Better yet, if you're Mike Brown, how do you let De'Aaron Fox after these last few days pick up his 5th foul in the fourth quarter?
He played 36 minutes. He played the entire fourth without picking up another foul.
And you think he was effective? You think he was effective in the fourth quarter?
Did I think he was effective 1 through 3?
Well, okay. Okay, well,
I mean,
yeah, you asked the question. I don't know, did you?
Yeah, to be honest,
I'm guessing you didn't.
To be honest, I thought he was better in the fourth quarter, playing with 5 fouls, than he was the rest of the game.
To me, the fact that they have all these players and there's all these metrics, to me, there's something like at the core of what or who this team is. And that's my concern.
This is always magnified too when it's the Lakers.
Sure.
Like you get your ass whooped by the Lakers because you do it in front. Hey, and salute to the Laker fans.
Yes,
because the game sold out.
And they chanted.
The game sold out last night because the Los Angeles Lakers were here. That's the state in which the Sacramento Kings are in. Salute. It'll sell out on Saturday at 3:00. That's where we're at. The times the Kings play the Lakers, the game sells out. So it stings more when it's the Lakers. And it feels like that's why I think if that had been it'd been Denver again, I don't know that it would feel like rock bottom, but because it's the Lakers and it's really loud in there when the Lakers are winning, yeah, you're walking out like, this is embarrassing.
Another issue that we've talked about ad nauseum, but it keeps rearing its ugly head, is Monty McNair, who I like and I don't want fired. For a team that talks about depth, you drafted a guy that can't play. Literally cannot get on the floor. And
yep.
I don't know how I don't know how you survive that.
Yeah.
I don't, and
especially when other rookies are playing well.
Other rookies are playing well,
drafted.
100%. And this was your call. They let basketball people do basketball things.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody always cried. They let basketball people do basketball things, regardless of what other people thought. And that was your decision. I don't know how you survive that if this continues.
Did he just completely misread this roster and like what this team's timeline is and all that? You drafting a guy who's not playing for 6 to 8 months or whatever you want to call it. Like, for what they are now, this doesn't make any sense.
Jesse, yes, because you had enough of a sample size midway through last season to know that roster wasn't it.
Yep.
You did. You knew it wasn't it, and you did absolutely nothing. You traded for Robin Lopez and waived him at the deadline. You did nothing. You get to the offseason. You were going to trade the pick. You're going to trade the pick. You didn't trade the pick. Whatever deal you had fell through. You were going to sign XYZ. You were going to sign X, Y, and Z. Those fell through. You made the trade for DeMar DeRozan. You gave up 3 second-round picks to clear cap space. And all we see now is you cleared cap space so you don't have to pay the luxury tax. And now you don't have those 3 second-round picks to go out and trade for, like, Dennis Schroeder just got traded for 2 second-round picks.
And then expiring.
But you don't have that.
Right.
So
maybe you wouldn't have to trade if you wouldn't have drafted a player that can't play.
That's
maybe
great. Maybe
that would have been the solution.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna give it to you guys now. You guys can continue this conversation.
Paul, you know what? Yeah, we might be down bad. We're not down that bad. It's a flag. It's a pass interference.
A round table.
Yeah, take it easy.
What, D-Lo and KC now.